If you're looking to buy or sell a home in Mason, Ohio, you want to know what's going on with the real estate market there. We're going to deep dive into the market dynamics in this video so you've got a really good feel of what real estate is like in Mason, Ohio. All right, hey guys, welcome back. My name's Eric Sztanyo from Keller Williams Realty and teamsztanyo.com, where we are helping families find their way home. And thanks so much for watching this video. If you wouldn't mind, and if this is helpful for you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. We're doing all kinds of real estate content here in the Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky market. And leave a comment below. Tell us if you're considering moving to Mason or selling a home in Mason, Ohio. And also tell us what other content you want us to build. Happy to build that out as we grow this channel here. So what I wanted to look at, and we just did another video about 5 reasons why Mason, Ohio is an awesome place to live. And it really is. You know, in terms of all the Cincinnati area markets on the northeast side of the city, we looked at how fun it is. You've got Kings Island, you've got the Western Southern Open, you've got Great Wolf Lodge, you've got these great parks. It's tons of fun to be there. You've got tons of jobs. So P&G is a major hub there. They just built their largest research and development facility in the entire world. And that has a giant kind of sprawl effect over the entire Mason, Ohio community. So you've got really strong jobs. You've got safety and diversity that are graded really high there. You've got top rated schools for kids, but also just holding those home property values really strong. And then you've got appreciation. And that's what we're going to dive into this video, is what's happening from an appreciation standpoint and what's happening from a supply and demand standpoint that's impacting the real estate market in Mason, Ohio. So let's take a look at these reports that I pulled from the MLS today. This is comparing a 2-year period ending in through November of 2020 and going back to the beginning of November in 2018. So what are we? I've got 3 reports I want to show you guys, and I'll try to unpack these graphs. I'm not going to give you a quiz at the end of this, but I might, but I won't. No, I won't. Okay, so I want to show you what's happening here. So what are we looking at here? This is supply and demand in terms of units that are for sale, that are under contract, and that are sold. And so if you can look at this in red, these red bars here is showing you what is the change over a 2-year period in the amount of units for sale. And what this is saying is that it is down 43.6% over a 2-year period. So you see this red line going down. You had more homes that were for sale through 2019, and then as you saw in 2020, what happened? Well, there were less homes for sale. Part of that may have been COVID related, yes, but part of that we'll see is just the amount of inventory that is out there, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But in contrast, what I want to look at is the amount of properties that were sold. So even though there was a roughly 44% decrease in the amount of units that were for sale, and this is in the Mason School District. I just pulled basically every residential unit that was for sale and sold in the Mason School District in the last 2 years. But what you see is, even though there was a 44% decrease in the amount of units for sale, there was a 27% increase in the amount of units that sold. So you can see this wide gap here back in 2018 and how it's tightening until where we're at right now in the end of year of 2020. So what's that going to do in 2021 going forward? Well, it's probably going to continue. And let's keep looking here at the next report, because I want to show you what kind of an impact did that supply and demand have on the prices in Mason, Ohio. Well, that's what we're going to look at here. Okay, so this next chart, we got a bar graph here. And again, we're going back the same 2-year period, and we're looking at the median price sold of homes in Mason, Ohio, in the Mason City School District right here. All single family, both single family homes and condominiums, okay? And starting back in November of 2018, the median home price is this dotted line right here. And that median home price was $275,000, okay? If you take that forward to November of 2020, that median home price is right here at $341,000. So there was a total change of $63,000 up, and a percent change of median price value of 21.5%. So 22% increase. And again, that's what this line is showing right here, that if you take that growth over the 2-year period, you're seeing 22% growth. Now, this is really fascinating. This happened in several areas around Cincinnati, but in Mason, you're really seeing a big impact on this. If you go back to this chart and you see the amount of properties that are for sale versus the amount that are sold, the supply and demand is just crunching down and causing these prices to rise. Now, overall, Cincinnati, if you compare it to other cities nationally, you're not going to see huge waves of appreciation. Because in terms of population growth overall, Cincinnati is not one of the top cities in terms of tons of people are flocking to the city. It's a great place to live. Don't get me wrong. Like I've looked around the country, okay? I've been to different cities. I've been to other cities outside of Cincinnati. And what I love about Cincinnati is it is steady. And what you're seeing here is steady growth. And so you might not see as high of appreciation as you might see in cities like Austin or Phoenix in years past. Or, if you go back to the kind of 2007, 08 build up and all the cities, Phoenix, different cities in Florida, Texas, California, that saw tons of appreciation. But what happened when the recession hit? Right? There's a huge crash. And so you got all these homeowners who were upside down because the market fundamentals weren't as solid, right? You're seeing all this appreciation, but there was a bubble there. And while that hit back in 2009, 2010, 2011 in Cincinnati, while that hit us a little bit, it's more of a steady city. You see slight rises, but then you also see slight dips when there's a recession. So that's something to consider. It's just more of a steady town. The economy is more diverse. You're not going to see huge appreciation, but you're also not going to see huge depreciation when the market churns and the cycle hits and goes the other way around. So it's something to consider. So knowing that broader context of Cincinnati, Ohio, when you see this, what's happening in Mason, Ohio, it's kind of like, like that's a fairly big deal. Like if you compare those numbers to Austin or Dallas or wherever, like other cities that are seeing, Nashville, a lot of population growth, you might think like, I'm not going to invest there. Like, what's the point? But in terms of Cincinnati, these are fairly solid numbers. So I want to show one more chart and then we'll close off this video. This last video is the month's supply of inventory going back 2 years again. Okay, so what this means is starting back in November of 2018, there was, maybe 3.8 months of inventory. What that number means is if no new houses came on the market, every house would be sold in 3.8 months. Okay, that's what that bar means. So it's telling you how long until all the inventory that's currently on the market will sell. And again, you're seeing this really steep decline in the months of inventory. In all of 2020, at the beginning, back in January, February, March, when COVID was first hitting, we're like, what's going to happen? This is going to be a crazy year. We're not going to see the growth that we've seen in prices the last few years, and people aren't going to buy and sell. Well, honestly, it was kind of the other way around. What happened was inventory shrunk even more because inventory was already low. You can see how it was going down in 2019 before COVID hit. There was already record lows of inventory. And then basically what happened was about 70% of people who were going to sell, who were planning on selling in 2020, about 70% of them put their houses on the market. 30% of them were kind of like, there's a world pandemic going on. I don't necessarily want a lot of people coming in my house. I can wait it out this year. And so that record low inventory that you saw shrunk even greater to these really historically low levels of inventory on the market. And you can see in June, July, August. I mean, those months from a real estate agent standpoint in Cincinnati was bonkers. If you were a seller, it was awesome because everything was going, like, if your house was anywhere near decent, it was going over asking price. You might be getting 5, 10, 15 offers on it. You'd sell it within the first few days. Otherwise, your agent did something really stupidly wrong. And everything, like, appraisers were just like, everything was going above asking price. We saw a lot of appreciation because the inventory was just so low. And while inventory was low, it didn't slow down the buyer demand. It didn't slow down the buyer demand at all. You had people who wanted to buy a house. That was coming in from 2019. And then you had people who were living in apartments or renting somewhere who were like, you know what, I wouldn't mind having a little space from this guy that's hacking up a lung down the hallway. You know, I'd like to have my own house and get a little room so that I can socially distance from all these people around here. And so again, those market dynamics of low supply and high demand led to a lot of appreciation happening, not only in Cincinnati. You see it here in Mason, Ohio, but it happened really across the country in most cities. And the reason I'm showing this is if you're projecting into 2021, you see a little bit more inventory coming on, so it slowed down just a little bit in September, October, November. But still, going back over 2 years, look at the level of inventory. It's down 66% from where it was 2 years ago. So what does that mean for you? Let me try to translate all of this and I'll wrap this video up. But what does that mean for you if you're looking to buy a house or sell a house in Cincinnati or in Mason, Ohio in 2021? Well, if you're a buyer, it probably means it's still going to be competitive. Unless something really crazy happens in the economy, going forward, which could happen. We've got a new administration. We'll see what happens with Senate races, things like that. But what most real estate professionals were saying going into COVID was, hey, the real estate market fundamentals were strong going into 2020. Going back into the 2008 recession, real estate caused that bubble, right? You had a bunch of bad lending practices where banks were handing out loans to people who shouldn't have loans. And you had this bubble in the values of houses because people were buying houses they couldn't afford. Eventually that burst. That wasn't necessarily happening this year. What you're just seeing is mostly low supply and high demand. And so what you're probably going to see going forward is that it's going to be a continuation where there's still going to be high demand and low supply. So if you're a buyer, what that means is it's going to be competitive for you, but you know that you can buy a property feeling confident, especially in a place like Mason, Ohio. You can be confident that the market fundamentals are strong, and because there's such high demand for a place like Mason, Ohio, you can expect your home to still appreciate in the years to come, or at least long term, because there might be larger market dynamics that hit you, but locally it's a strong area in terms of all those reasons we mentioned before: the fun, the jobs, the population growth, the top-rated schools. All those things make it a really good place to buy. If you're a seller, then you might considering thinking, if you're a homeowner, you're like, man, market's really great and there's still a lot of demand. You can still probably get a really great price for your home in 2021. The question is, what are you going to do next, right? Are you going to buy somewhere overpriced? And that's where it gets a little bit more tricky if you sell your home. But in terms of cashing out and taking out some of the equity that's appreciated in your property over the past several years, might be a really good idea. Okay, so guys, this video maybe was more info than you wanted. I hope that it was helpful for you. But I wanted to give you kind of a look into the real estate market in Mason, Ohio. If you're considering buying there, why it makes a lot of sense to buy there, or why it honestly makes good sense to sell there as well. But if this video was helpful for you, again, please like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.